Hi everybody, Pastor Jason here. It's been a while since we've done one of these updates. I am in the course of reading every verse in Scripture that has to do with the idea of fear or fearing or being afraid or trembling or something of that nature, and reading them all in context, doing a little bit of word study or commentary work as needed to make sure I understand what that verse is on, and then moving on to the next one. I'm discovering there's more than I thought that there were. There's well over 600 actual verses in Scripture that deal with that. And so I am pursuing being able to develop an exhaustive biblical theology of fear. And I've been doing these videos now for, well, as long as we've been in 2021. I started just after the new year. And I haven't done an update in a long time, and so summer was crazy busy. And my children's pastor role was insanely busy, and then we had some things happen in our personal life that took a whole bunch of time. So anyway, back to the project and able to make another one of these update videos. So where am I in the journey of reading over 600 of these verses? I am just now, moments ago, done with the wisdom literature of the Bible. So I finished Ecclesiastes just minutes ago, and about to step into the prophets. So I have done, let me make sure I get this number right, 366 verses thus far in my journey through the Bible on what it says about fear. I've just discovered another pattern that showed up in the wisdom literature portion of Scripture that had not shown up before, and I thought I would come to you and share this piece of wisdom with you. So, a lot of places in Proverbs, matter of fact, it's the overarching theme of fear in Proverbs. Proverbs deals with comparing the life of the wise person to the life of the fool. And throughout the book, many of the verses will say something like, the fool XYZ, but the wise ABC. And so they are laid there in anti-parallel to each other, inviting the reader to consider where his life falls on that dichotomy. Is he more like the fool, or is he more like the wise person? And so that's the overall pattern of Proverbs. Ecclesiastes tends to look at things a little bit more differently. They look through the lens of what is meaningful, and most everything is not. And so, but the pattern holds that there are some things that are worth doing and some things that are not worth doing. Well, when you ask wisdom literature, Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes, and Job, to inform your view of wisdom and your view of fear, there's a very interesting spin on what we've seen in the past. The fear of the Lord throughout Scripture has to do with giving God the solitary right to overwhelm you and your sense of who you are and how you live your life, and giving Him and His Word and His will the prerogative to radically change you, so that instead of you ordering your world according to your desires, you order your world and your life according to what you perceive to be God's desires. That because He is who He is, you must be the one who changes. God will not change to our desires. We must change to His. That's the kernel of the meaning of the fear of the Lord. Well, interestingly, when you take that idea and you follow it through, especially Proverbs, but also the other wisdom literature books, you find that the life of wisdom is laid on top of the fear of the Lord, that the fear of the Lord and the life of wisdom are synonymous. It happens, I think I counted 23, I should have looked at that before I started recording, 22, 23, something like that, verses in the book of Proverbs that talk about the fear of the Lord. And it's always laid as a synonym for the life of wisdom. You'll be reading through the Proverbs, and the wise person does this, the fool does this. The wise person does this, the fool does this. Those who fear the Lord do this, the fool does this. And so, just in the didactic sort of teaching method that Proverbs uses, where we have a parallel statement, wise fool, those who fear the Lord, all of a sudden takes the place of the life of the wise, or wisdom. And earlier in the book of Proverbs, in the first 5 or 6 chapters, wisdom is personified as a person, and you get from some places that it's not just any person, but wisdom is God. And it says that wisdom was used to create the earth, and yet God talks to wisdom, and so wisdom has to be a separate person within the Godhead. And the best fit interpretation, especially from a Christian perspective, is that wisdom is actually a Christophany of sorts. That wisdom is personified, and it's Jesus speaking in the first person and saying, "I am wisdom." That when you pursue me and you fear me, that you are pursuing and fearing the life of the wise. So Proverbs 1:7 says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's also in Psalms 111. It's also in Job. And it shows up again, spun a little differently, 3 other times in the book of Proverbs, where you get the idea that it is wise to submit yourself to God, and in Proverbs specifically to the person of Jesus, that submission to him is where wisdom is realized. And it's always the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of instruction, the source of knowledge, those kinds of phrases. And so if you're going to try to be wise, if you're going to try to be a person of knowledge who lives the life of wisdom as opposed to the life of the fool, you begin by submitting yourself to the Lord. And then, having begun that way, the question will arise, well, what do we do when life gets hard and things get difficult and there are potential objects of fear that we encounter in our lives? We've begun by submitting ourselves to Christ. Now what? Over and over again through Proverbs, the idea is that having submitted yourself to God, to wisdom, don't submit yourself to anything else. Over and over again, it says things like, if I fear the Lord, I don't need to fear man. If the Lord is for me, who can be against me? What can man do to me? He who is wise needs to fear no evil. Statements like that pop up a whole bunch of times. And so I started this project because people I love, I think, were living in fear, and they claimed to be living in wisdom. And something in my spirit said, no, those aren't the same. And in fact, they're very much not the same. We need to submit ourselves to God, to his leading in our life, to his rule, to his word, and we need to allow the nature of God to overwhelm who we think we are and what we think our life should be. And in that posture, we need to refuse to let anything else do that. Having submitted yourself to Christ, do not submit yourself to other people. Do not submit yourself to circumstances of your world. Do not submit yourself to any power that would try to change your submission to Christ. And so the submission to God, to the fear of the Lord, to the life of wisdom, which is the life of Christ, that is the only thing that we need to submit ourselves to. And having that posture, refuse to let anything else bring us to a place of fear. So that's my nutshell reaction to fear in the wisdom literature, and I look forward to being able to do these updates again with you as we begin to walk into the prophets together. God bless you. Don't be afraid of anything. Fear God and nothing else.